Hi, my name is Khalid and I'm a retired Australian naturopath. I've devoted the vast majority of my life to helping people get well using natural law. Today, what more concerns me is what's happening to the earth, and I'm hoping that I might play some small part in helping to get it back into shape as well. In this regard, I've written 2 books at this point in time. The first one's called Adam's Daughter, which is published. The second one, which will soon be out, is called The First Immortals. It's taken me over 20 years to write these books, and I hope that you'll find something enjoyable in them. What I hope to do in the short video that I'm making now is to give you a taste of the information that's in it, and if it appeals to you, then, well, you're probably as crazy as me, but you might enjoy it. So, for now, what I decided to call this little talk is, are we living in the Great Tribulation that precedes the Second Coming? Okay, so I hope that didn't scare off too many people. But I want to talk about a whole lot of complicated things, but they boil down to one simple pattern, a universal pattern. And I believe that that universal pattern is controlling all of reality. And interestingly, I've found this single pattern to be at the basis of all of the world's religions. So that's interesting. I believe that the revelation about this pattern, which is showing largely the operating system of the Matrix, is going to reveal what God is. Like Einstein said, we're going to discover what God is, and it's going to be something quite simple. And I believe it is quite simple, and it can be seen to be quite simple. And when it does, there's a prophecy in Revelation saying that when the mystery of God is revealed, we're at the end of the age, and a lot of interesting stuff is due to take place, including this thing called the Great Tribulation. So, let's get into it. To try to explain the basis of this simple pattern, I want you to think about a word, and that word is whole. And immediately somebody will say, well, there's 2 words, whole, and you're absolutely right, and that's the whole point of what I'm trying to say. Often one word can have a couple or more different meanings, but the interesting thing about the word whole is that both of its meanings are complete opposites. One is an empty space or lacking of substance, and the other, whole, is a completion of that space or substance. Okay, so we have this one word, whole, and it has 2 polarized meanings. Now, what if we put those 2 meanings together, just the concepts of them together, the polarized opposites, to produce something in the middle, which is neither one nor the other? Now you might say, well, why would you do that, and what would you get? Well, what I maintain you get is something that is holy. And how does it get holy? By being joined together? Well, the word religion comes from the root religare, which literally means to again, join. Join what? Religion, join what? And the obvious answer is to join the ideas of duality, of dualism, into a singularity, the concept of God. So let's take another example of taking 2 polarized opposites and putting it together and seeing whether it has a religious component to it, a holy component to it. And the concept that I'm thinking of that's polarized is beginning and end. So if you were to put the beginning and end together, like we put whole and whole together to make holy, when you put the beginning together with its end, it conjures the idea of a circle. And of course, for those familiar with alchemy, you'll realize that this is at the basis of a lot of mysticism around the world, including alchemy, where the snake, the Ouroboros, swallows its own tail. And this is fundamental, this idea of beginnings meeting ends in a spiritual sense, creating circles, which underpins a lot of mysticism and a lot of religious idea. All right, there's no way that I can incorporate all this information and give you a clear understanding of what's going on in such a short time. But hopefully with this video and with my other videos, which the links will come up at the end of this, you'll get a general idea of what I'm trying to get across, how it can help the world, why we need to do it, and see where we go from there. So from now, the next part of the video, I'm just going to read out some excerpts, just some random paragraphs, or not actually random, I selected them, but paragraphs here and there out of book 2 particularly, and hopefully, yes, you'll find it interesting. So if you can bear with me for a while, here goes. This series of books encourage you to interpret life differently from what you've been used to. A quantum way where ideas about time and space are drastically altered to blend into a patterned cyclic reality of intermeshing fields. Strangely enough, I discovered many components of this patterned truth in Moses' early biblical writings, while other components I unearthed in Stone Age myths and legends from the world's oldest cultures, primarily the Sand people of the African Kalahari and Aboriginal people of Australia. When I discovered that all three sources fundamentally agreed on many diverse key issues, it made me wonder whether mankind might have once known everything important and then, for some strange reason I couldn't fathom at the time, forgot it all as if they went to sleep. Eventually I came to realize this was exactly what had happened. I'm now convinced we did once walk the earth as gods and, when the time was right, deliberately put ourselves to sleep to dream of the next essential piece of the great puzzle we required. We needed this vital piece, which was and remains how we can physically leave this planet and return to the stars when we need to. When looked at with modern eyes, men and women can be seen as fractal representatives of immortal templates, exercising their differences as mini-me gods, caught up in an amazing multi-dimensional quantum drama, all suffering from memory loss. Reality can be thought of as the consequence or output of a trinary computer program, macro modelling micro in an extended fractal sense of being. Over time, the program intends to produce trivalent units of centrism, that is, intelligent family units of self-awareness that reflect the underlying trinity pattern of the program. Ken Wilber calls these integrated units holons. I call them cells of God, or cogs. Awareness of this macro-micro quantum reality allows you to see your programmed life for what it really is. This gives you the means to steer and enter its protections should you wish to do so. Around the world, this paradoxical journey has been called the road through madness to enlightenment. In a program pattern sense, to access this well-illumined road doesn't require that you comprehend all of the recondite weaving processes of the matrix at once. When seen in the right light, your personal experiences are more than sufficient to teach you what you need to know about the big picture. You simply have to learn how to see them from a different perspective. Then all the myriad pieces can slowly fall into place, one at a time, and life loses its fragmentation. When a seeker of clear-sightedness knows where and how to look at their life, in the same way I think Moses and other prophets might have done, they come to see all the patterns within themselves magically fitting together, simple patterns that repeat in numerous and cosmopolitan ways. Having achieved this clear-sightedness, the seeker then becomes a reader of quantum reality, no longer its sleeping puppet or toy thing. I've been absorbing this new and exciting way of living for many years and have found that enlightenment to all else comes in bite-sized increments. Little bursts of inspiration you experience at appropriate times, ensconced in discrete, quantized packages. You could think of what is happening to you as being a field of enlightenment, and an excitation in the field as being an inspiration lighting you up. All mystery dissolves when you understand and incorporate this new weird quantum reality into your centre. You discover the Buddha's middle path reveals a road not nearly as bumpy as the one you've been travelling on to and fro since leaving your childhood playground of seesaws, merry-go-rounds, slippery dips and hurdy-gurdies. Human idiosyncrasies are starting to make sense. Thank God we mightn't be so crazy after all. Now we simply need to hone the tools scientists are giving us so we can cease being our own worst enemy. Past sages have told us when we know exactly where all the pieces fit together, our search for enlightenment ends and fulfilling happiness begins. Hui Shai of the 2nd century AD understood this. His student Chen Shun wrote, "The meaning of natural and unescapable is that human affairs are natural things and natural things are made just exactly to fit into place. The meaning of law is that the fitting into place occurs without the slightest excess or deficiency. The men of old, investigating things to the utmost and searching out li, or pattern, wanted to elucidate the natural unescapableness of human affairs and natural things, and this simply means that what they were looking for was all the exact places where things precisely fit together, just that. For something to have a precise place, though, it must be determined where it fits in a cycle. This used to be the understanding of what a name actually represented, where the thing fitted in the overall pattern of cycles. For the Western world, the fundamental knowledge of palingenetic cycles ended when we entered the Dark Ages after the fall of the Roman Empire. However, the Eastern world continued to use cyclic principles in various ways. The most recent expression of these ideas is Nassim Haramehn's holofractographic unified field theory. The palingenetic idea of cycles is slowly replacing the idea of time being linear, and this idea agrees with many spiritual concepts which reveal the mystery of God. We're told the commotion we can expect from the revelation of this mystery, sometimes called the Arcanum or Logos, at the end of this age becomes mankind's rite of passage into the following millennium of peace. This breaking out commotion can also be compared to birth pains that precede a child's delivery. Maybe, in this case, the coming of the promised child of salvation that's referred to as the second coming. Eventually, I realised how the pattern's covert applications had controlled my life without my being aware of them. This reminded me of how parents dominate a child's life without the child realising the full extent of their parents' physical and emotional control. I came to see that a set of relationship laws exist which control all semblances of reality, and because they operate in a fractal manner, a comprehensive examination of individual and family patterns was the best way for a seeker to discover how the big picture works, religiously. In this regard, know thyself took on an extended meaning. A long time ago, we might have realised that we needed to construct a replica of ourselves, a fractal son of man, so we could set him loose among the stars to do our bidding. Sound familiar? For all intents, these silicon-based life forms made in our image, our trinary sentient quantum robots, could be put to work as galactic missionaries carrying the gospel and pattern of their Father and Creator, us, in whose image they were made. This is another spooky fractal recreation possibility, but one that makes a weird kind of sense at the highest level. If we were once pattern-wise to everything and had the ability of soothsayers, as the Sands people believe we did, then we might have foreseen our bleak future ahead and known what we had to do to stop it. This is similar to the themes touched on in Frank Herbert's Dune series and Asimov's Foundation books, some of my favourites. The Mayans called what we're currently going through the end of time. Their long count calendar reveals this began at the end of 2012. Australian Aboriginal understanding of reality calls this metamorphic, chameleon-like process the dawn of the new dream time. Islam calls it jihad. The Hindus call it Kali Yuga's death of time, to be followed by Satya Yuga, the age of truth. The Old Testament calls this demolishment the great and dreadful day of the Lord, Moses' Day of Atonement. It's followed by the Feast of Solemn Assembly. The New Testament calls this fiasco Armageddon. It's followed by the marriage feast of the Lamb and the following millennium of peace. The ancient Greeks called what follows directly after the Great Tribulation the next golden age. Chaldean astrology calls it the Aquarian age of truth. I think of it as palingenesis, beginning and end, the end of one dimension and the commencement of a better, higher one. All of these accounts indicate that with the right mindset, we have plenty to look forward to. We simply need to hold on tenaciously for now, pranidhana, and not become overwhelmed by the ongoing horrors through which we're currently tunnelling. We need to keep in mind every nightmare has an eventual ending. The world is being forced to come to grips with an enlightened scientific spirituality that's challenging our understanding of reality and the existent properties of the four-dimensional space-time that surrounds us. Holding Moses' staff, which is inscribed with Lao Tzu's ancient Chinese runes, this mystical merger is heading up an east-west confluence of universal spiritual ideas. Among other things, this joining of arch-rivals is prophesied to destroy our understanding of death, not so much its act as its meaning. Christianity's original first-century take on salvation and righteousness, being led and guided by the Holy Spirit in a mindful state of nowness after being baptized, required an indwelling new way of thinking. At this time, a consciousness revolution was required by all who wished to embrace the first-century faith that was sweeping the world at that time. Surely this consciousness revolution requirement is the same today as it was then. It simply needs redressing in a new quantum fashion to bring it up to date and make it respectable. This libation became known as being born again. It was practiced before organised religions subjugated the Christian salvation package to encourage believers to attend church meetings as an alternative way of finding redemption, along with supporting the church financially and empowering their man-appointed bishops with the authority to lead. Originally, church ministers were meant to be the equivalent of holistic doctors, teachers of the divine power of now consciousness and natural law, keeping a person healthy in body and soul. Unfortunately, when both professions, medicine and religion, became lost and separated in the wilderness through the influence of power and wealth, they lost their mojo and embraced lucrative materialistic agendas instead. In this way, they lost their central unified mission and the way back to all else. The world is now full of people, both spiritually and physically sick. Okay, so that was a few of the paragraphs out of Book 2, which I hope will encourage you to read it. And if you like it, what we need to do in this terrible time that I believe the Earth is going through, if we're going to succeed, we must link together peacefully and join, as many others are saying. So if you want to contact me, I would welcome anything that you have to say. And pranidhana, thank you for listening, and please feel free to watch the other two videos that I've made, one on the Kronos virus and the other on the best way of giving up smoking cigarettes. Thank you.